Today, we have some insane stories that these people would never share with their parents in a million years. Sit back, relax, subscribe if you're new, leave a like on the video to claim your free nothing, and let's just jump right into the stories.
And we're crying, crying, crying like a wounded animal.
So we're going to call a subscriber who submitted the first story Jeb. So this is a great example of something you should not do before a family dinner or a family gathering. So anyways, Jeb, one weekend, had no idea that he had a family dinner tonight, right? So it was just like 3 p.m. on a Saturday. I'm not totally sure why Jeb is doing this at all, especially at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, but he decides that he is going to take a very special substance that makes you basically see flying colors and makes your brain go kaboomy. Some people will, yeah, it's not your standard adult thing that I normally will reference in videos. It is something that you might see maybe in chemistry class. You'll learn about like solids, I don't know, acids, wink, wink. Okay, I think some of you guys know what I'm saying. And if you don't, just imagine something that makes your brain go kaboomy. And I will never touch in a billion years because I'm a scared little boy. But anyways, Jeb decided that it would be a fantastic idea that he's just going to take some of this, I'm just going to call it, I'm going to call it a periodic element. It's not, but that's in reference to chemistry or whatever. Look, he's deciding he's going to take the periodic element at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, because, like, why not? So he does, and he's just chilling in his room. He's trying to watch some kind of, like, movie, and the movie's, like, whatever, right? And that's when, at 4, it takes a while for the effects to hit him, but he's starting to feel the effects a little bit. He hears his mom walks up, and she's like, "Why aren't you dressed?" And he just looks at her, thinking like, "Oh no, like, it's already affecting me, man. My mom's speaking gibberish to me right now. At least that's what it seems like." But no, she was saying, "Why aren't you dressed?" And he looks at her, and she's like, "You didn't forget, right?" And Jeb is just looking at his mom with this look of just sheer confusion and a little bit of panic, a little bit of, "What are you saying?" Yeah, so she goes on to explain to him that, first of all, he should not have forgotten this, but second of all, that he needs to get dressed because they have family members coming over in 15 minutes. And Jeb is just like, what? What? Like, are you... It starts to, like, Jeb starts to feel, like, different things of emotions. He starts to feel like, okay, I can do this. It's not a big deal. And that slowly turns over into, I can't do this. This is a big deal. I'm going to panic. I'm going to freak out. But either way, eventually he kind of comes to the acceptance of what is, right? And sure enough, Jeb gets his, like, good clothes together. Apparently, they were not coordinated at all. Like, it was the most... It was not coordinated. Like, you could see, like, the colors were totally off, but it was fancier clothing, right? He dressed up. Even if it looked awful, he still dressed up. So he walked downstairs, and his mom just kind of gives him a look because he's kind of walking a little bit weird and he's dressed super strange. And all of his, like, some of his, like, family members are sitting down in the living room. So he goes down to sit down with them, and his mom's like, "All right, well, I'm going to go back into the kitchen. Jeb, like, just enjoy yourself down here. Make sure to talk to, whatever, right? Just, like, talk to your family members or whatever." So Jeb is sitting there, and his family member's like, "So, Jeb, how's it going?" And Jeb just bursts into laughter. Like, he doesn't know, he knows why. Let's not kid ourselves. We know why he's acting a little weird right now. But remember, nobody else does. So he just bursts into laughter when this guy says, "How's it going, Jeb?" And, like, Jeb's mom can hear the laughter from the kitchen and probably just assumes that, haha, Uncle Steve just said something really funny. But in reality, Uncle Steve just asked a normal question. And Jeb just could not stop laughing, so he had to excuse himself. And he's in the bathroom, and he's just staring at the mirror. And he's staring at the mirror, and that's when he hears a knock. His mom's like, "Jeb." And Jeb opens the door, and he's like, "What?" She's like, "You've been in there for 30 minutes. Jeb's like, "What?" Jeb had just been staring at the mirror. He had no idea that anything weird was happening. He was like, in his mind, he had literally just glanced into the mirror, but apparently he just got so absorbed, he's just staring at it for 30 minutes. So she's like, why are you being so weird? And he's like, what? So he goes back, and it's finally dinner time. He sits down at the table. And once again, the same Uncle Steve or whatever is like, so, Jeb, how's it going? And Jeb's like, boop, because then he remembers how funny he thought it was. And then he thinks about how funny it is that he thought that was funny. So once again, he bursts out laughing, but his mom's at the table, and she gives him a death stare. Look, Jeb was not like perceiving things correctly, right? He had a lot of things going on in his brain, a lot of chemicals that were being released, and the neurons were firing, but they're firing out wrong. But one thing he did perceive correctly, and he still remembers to this day, is the look that his mom gave him. So his mom pulled him aside, and she's like, Steve, or Jeb, can you help me in the kitchen? Jeb's like, okay. Walks in the kitchen. She like takes him, like grabs him by the shirt. It's like, what is up? What is this? This is not normal. And Jeb just looks at her, and he's like, what? She's like, Jeb, tell me, are you on anything right now? Jeb's like, no. She's like, prove it. He's like, okay. She's like, okay, walk in a straight line. The thing is, though, this was the wrong test. I think that Jeb's mom thought that he had, like, adult apple juice or something like that instead of some periodic element, because Jeb could walk around fine. It was just everything else that was funky, right? So he walked in a straight line, no problem. And Jeb's mom just looks at him. And instead of asking him to do anything cognitive, right? If she asked him to say, like, what's your name, Jeb? He would have been like, can I get another question? So, yeah, she didn't ask, thankfully for him, she didn't ask anything like a cognitive question, asking for, like, anything like that. So he got off the hook, believe it or not. Yeah, he went back to the dinner table. No one really asked him any more questions because they were kind of, like, sussed out or whatever. And Jeb, to this day, I think Jeb thinks his mom imagines that something was up. But to this day, he's never said anything to her about it. We're going to call the subscriber for the next story Steve. Yeah, I'm on a Minecraft theme. The names today, by the way, are Jeb, Steve, Alex, and Notch. So, Steve, we're going to call the subscriber. Steve's parents were going to leave for the weekend. Steve was a pretty chill kid who more or less followed the rules. I would say pretty similar to myself in that regard. And Steve's parents kind of expected him to not do anything. So they gave him a little talk, even though they thought it was almost a little bit unnecessary. They were like, hey, Steve, we don't expect you to do anything, but obviously, right, obviously, don't have anyone over, okay? Don't have a big party, don't have anything crazy. Like, if you want to have, like, one friend over or something like that during the day, that's fine. We really don't care about that, but we don't expect you to have a party or anything, but just don't do that, okay? And Steve looks at them and says, yeah, absolutely. Have fun this weekend, Mom, Dad. They're like, okay, well, you're the man of the house now. Make sure it doesn't blow away. Ha, ha, ha. Insert dad joke or whatever, right? I like dad jokes. But anyways, so they drive off, and Steve feels a little bad that he just lied to his parents' face. Because Steve had known for a little while that his parents were going to go out for the weekend, he kind of planned that he was going to have a massive rager at his house. And you might be thinking, well, Connor, won't his neighbors say something? So Steve lived in like an area where all the houses were separated. It was like very rural. There was a lot of the neighbors weren't in eyesight, right? They weren't even in earshot. There was a lot of land and area in between all the houses. So as long as Steve made sure that the house didn't get wrecked, he would have been off the hook. So yeah, sure enough, that Friday night, because his parents got back like late Saturday night, that Friday night, all these people start showing up, right? All the people he used to go or he goes to school with, his friends that live kind of close, they're all showing up. It's very standard, crazy teenager party. By the way, I think it's obvious, but don't host these. If you want to go to them, I actually have no problem with that, as long as they're safe, right? But don't host these. It's no benefit to you. I know you're only going to destroy your house. I never did, and I'm not lying, even though my mom does watch my videos, and she's normally first like on the video, which is pretty cool. But no, I would never do this. I mean, I'd go to one, sure. I have no problem with that, but don't host these. Just a little piece of advice. But anyways, people show up. Steve is really excited. All these people are at his house. Life is good. Things are good. Well, things were good. Because as the night went on, the amount of adult apple juice consumed went up as well. And with the adult apple juice being consumed going up, well, let's just say the people started to act a little bit crazier. People started to make a mess. Things started to get knocked over. Cans were dropped on the floor. The floor is sticky and gross. People were starting to their stomachs were like, you had too much apple juice. We're sending it back up, right? We're sending it back to the chef. So people were throwing up everywhere, right? And people had no regard. That's the reason why I'm telling you don't host these things. People have no regard for your personal belongings or for the fact that they're in a different home. They just assume, oh, well, this isn't my home, so let me trash it up, baby. Yeah, so it was about 2 a.m. when everyone cleared out more or less, and Steve was just left alone with a completely trashed house. And within 24 hours, he knew that his parents would be back. So immediately, Steve goes to bed, and he wakes up, he doesn't set an alarm, so he wakes up at 2 p.m. His parents are going to be there in 6, which 4 hours sounds like a lot of time, but the amount of stuff that Steve has to clean up, 4 hours is not enough time. He would need like a whole day. So Steve immediately panics, and he goes straight into it to assess the damage. The damage is bad. He just grabs a trash bag. There are a ton of cans, right? A ton of stuff. He says that's the first thing he's doing. Going around, because if there's even one can, right, boom, it's over. But if there's like a spill or something happened, then he can be like, oh, I totally forgot to clean that up. That's my fault. I'm sorry. But if there's even one can that is visible, his whole shtick is over, right? So Steve is going around. He's grabbing all the cans or whatever, does that. It's 3. His parents are back at 6. 1 hour's gone by. He's going through. He walks into the bathroom. It is a disaster zone. It is terrible. And it's just not looking good for Steve. However, at 6:03, his parents are a little bit late. Steve has finally cleaned up the entire house when his parents pull into the driveway. It is like the best timing of all time. For now, Steve has put the trash bags full of, the cans under his bed. He can't just put them into the trash because if his parents looked in there, well, it'd be pretty obvious. Steve is just waiting for a good opportunity when his parents are gone for like an hour or something to take the trash cans and walk them down to like the dumpster that's like a 15-minute walk in his neighborhood, right? But his parents show up and they come inside. They're like, oh, Steve, how was it? And he's like, oh, it was pretty good. And they're like, oh, did you have any friends over? He's like, no, it's just me. Just watch some movies or something, whatever. And this is where Steve's heart starts to race. Beads of sweat start to form on his temple. Why is this, you might be asking? Well, it's because Steve notices behind his parents, sitting on the kitchen counter in plain sight, is a can, an empty can. And if they were to turn around and see this can, his whole shtick, it would be gone, be over. He'd be done for, guys. He'd be toast. So Steve is like, I can get your bags. How about you guys just go upstairs? And they're like, oh, no, we got it. They both turn around in eyesight of the kitchen table. But somehow, they both don't notice the can. They walk outside to grab their bags. And Steve immediately grabs the can, puts it into his back pocket, which is kind of, I don't know. Now Steve can't turn around because he's got a can in his back pocket. His parents come back in and they're like, oh, can you bring these up? And Steve's like, yeah. He picks up the bags and starts walking backwards. And they're like, why are you walking backwards? He's like, haha, I don't know. I saw on the internet, it's like better for your back. Makes up some complete BS. He walks up to his parents' bedroom, puts the bags in, quickly walks into his room, takes the can out of his back pocket, and puts it under his bed. Weeks later, his parents leave again for a couple hours. He walks the trash bags out, completely, scene of the crime is good. To this day, Steve's parents have no idea. We're going to call the next subscriber Alex. See, we're on the Minecraft theme, but anyways, right? So, Alex had a girlfriend, and every single day, well, okay, maybe not every single day, but at least several times a week. So it could be every single day for a week, but very often, he snuck his girlfriend over into his house. His parents were not a fan of having a girlfriend, right? They were like, okay, they were okay with it a little bit, but they would be not okay at all with her coming over to the house, especially, and if for some reason, they just happened to, I don't know, hit their head and be like, oh, okay, yeah, she can come over. They would be watching her like a hawk watches a mouse scurry in a field, dude. They would be on top of her. They would be like, okay, guys, so you're both sitting on the couch. We have these dividers, and they had put in these like massive stone blocks. You guys cannot be within 8 feet of each other because that would be way too close of physical contact. And, oh, my boy is not having any physical contact with any girls ever. Maybe it wasn't that extreme, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so anyways, Alex decided the best idea, well, they came to the conclusion the best idea is she just sneaks over into his house because he lived in a 2-story house. However, his bedroom was on the first floor. So she would just, come in and sneak, like, and he was behind, right? He's behind the house. So she would just walk over, sneak through the neighbor's backyard, hop the fence, make sure that they weren't, like, in the kitchen because the kitchen had clear sight of the backyard, sneak in. Alex would have she would send, like, the text when she was, like, walking over. Alex would open up the window, she would climb in, and it would be all good, right? And the walls were pretty thick, and his parents lived on the second floor. So while they had to be aware that, like normally Alex would be playing a pretty loud movie, just, like, in the background, so that if his parents were, like, walking by, they wouldn't hear, like, a female voice or something. Or if they did, he could always just chalk it up as a movie, right? So one day, when this was all happening, remember, Alex's parents, they never check on him. They never walk into his room. There's just no reason for them to do that, and they never do. However, there was, like, a super important thing that Alex's mom needed to talk about because there's, like, something scheduling. Not serious, but it was, like, important that he knows. So Alex's girlfriend are just, like, sitting in his bed watching something, and that's when Alex hears a knock on the door, and Alex is like, what? Because his parents never do this. Better than them just entering, but they never, like, talk to him in his room. It's very rare. So Alex is, like, looks at his girlfriend. And his girlfriend looks at him back with these big wide eyes. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment parent or parents, either one, down below. That'll be the secret word of the day. Leave a like on the video to claim your free nothing. Subscribe if you're new. Trying to get that gold play button. And let's get right back to it. So anyways, Alex and his girlfriend are just looking at each other. Like deers in a headlight. Caught. Not sure what to do. And Alex just looks around the room really quickly, and he looks at his closet. He looks at her, points at the closet. She knows exactly what Alex means. She gets up, she walks over quickly, goes in the closet, closes it behind her. Alex gets up, opens up the door, and he's like, hey, Mom, what's up? His mom walks into the room. And Alex is like, please don't open up the closet for no good reason. And Alex's mom is like, hey, I really need to talk to you about this. She goes on to tell him about, scheduling change, something along the lines of that, right? And Alex is like, yep, cool. Please don't open up the closet door. It's all I'm asking. Nice, cool, okay. And, Alex's mom starts, like, walking towards the closet. And he's like, oh, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I got you this, like, new tie. I thought I'd put in your closet, too. And Alex is like, oh, let me look at that. Like, takes the tie from her. Wow, I really like this. I'm actually going to put this aside so I can wear it tomorrow. Yeah, so Alex put it beside, because, like, thankfully, Alex lays out his clothes, like, the day before or the night before he wears them. And if he didn't do that, his mom would have been like, oh, let's put it in the closet for you. So, yeah, Alex's mom eventually gets up and leaves. Alex waits, like, 2 minutes and then eventually goes over to the closet, opens it, looks at his girlfriend, and is like, well, that was a close call. Yeah, so Alex and his girlfriend lasted for about 6 months, and then they just decided to split. Wasn't like a messy split or anything, so no reason for me to tell the story. However, to this day, Alex's parents never knew about any of the times the fact that she snuck over, or the fact that she existed, actually. We're going to call the subscriber who submitted the last story Notch. I'm on the Minecraft theme, guys. Anyways, Notch got expelled from school, and his parents never knew. You might be thinking, how is this possible? Well, Notch got expelled right before it went onto Zoom. So he did something, and I don't know exactly what. It might have been a accumulation of a bunch of not so good things, or maybe a few bad things or whatever. For some reason, he got expelled. And he got expelled like a week before they went on Zoom, but the whole process of getting expelled was all dragged out or whatever. And so by the time that Zoom classes came around, Alex was no longer enrolled in his high school. He was gone. He was done. And for some reason, right, his parents were just not contacted. I don't totally know how this worked out. I think in the, like, the whole, I think it was in, like, the, I don't know, the whole 2020 disease. I'm not going to say it specifically. Y'all already know what it is. It's just, I think YouTube would be mad. That whole, like, thing, I think it just, like, the school was so busy and transitioning over to Zoom and trying to figure out what's going on and what they can do. They were so busy with that they just, I think someone in the administration just forgot to send out the email to his parents, or just it got lost in translation somehow. And because Notch was waiting every day for his mom to walk in, super furious, whatever, and that never happened. And Notch started to realize that, oh, she doesn't even know. So Notch decided, okay, well, maybe she doesn't need to know. So he started to, like, go on his computer, and his mom would walk in, and he'd be like, Mom, I'm on Zoom class. She says, oh, okay, that's fine, I'll be back. So he would be in his room for, like, 6-8 hours a day, whatever, on Zoom class, which basically just meant he was just watching TV and stuff and whatever, right? And his mom never really knew. You might be thinking, okay, well, what about when he graduates? Isn't she going to have some questions then? And the thing was, Notch explained to her that they weren't having a graduation ceremony. It's like, oh, this is too much. It was too busy. And he went online and he faked all the documents with, like, I don't know, Photoshop and stuff like that. He faked a graduation certificate and he showed it to his mom, and his mom and dad were, like, so proud of him or whatever. And he felt a little bad, but, like, also he's like, whatever. And yeah, so they believe to this day that he is a high school graduate. Alex actually got a job, no problem. Things were okay for him. Like, life's all good. You don't have to worry about him, man. And yeah, he said probably one day when he's, like, at a really successful job or whatever, that's when he'll tell his parents, oh yeah, by the way, how's it going, everyone? Today we have stories of parents finding out something about their kids that, you know, is very regrettable that they found out, because it led to a lot of uncomfortable situations. So sit back, relax, leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing, and let's just jump right into it.
And we're crying, crying, crying like a wounded animal.
So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this first story Ben. So anyways, I'm just jumping right into it. Ben had a collection of certain photos. Okay, so Ben is actually an older subscriber. I've actually collected a few of these stories from people above the age of 7 watching the Pugs channel. This happened a long time ago, back in the 80s. So Ben is a older dude at this point. But Ben, basically, back in the 80s, they didn't have access to the internet. So if they wanted to look at certain images that are not very safe for work, they're probably not safe for a lot of things, viewing-wise at least, but a lot of people enjoy looking at them. I think you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Basically, they had to have physical copies of these not safe for work images. They couldn't just go online, look at something, and then delete their search history. They literally had to have physical copies of this. So Ben, when he was a kid in the 80s, had a private collection. We're just going to call it the stash. So from here on out, I'm going to call it the stash, and that's what the stash means, right? So anyways, Ben also had a private bathroom. His house wasn't big or anything. I'm not trying to say that he lived in a mega mansion or something. He didn't. He really didn't. But, you know, his bathroom was, like, connected to the inside of his room. So he ended up getting a private bathroom, which is pretty cool. So basically, Ben would hide his stash in a very secret compartment in his private bathroom. Basically, there was a drawer component, like a bunch of drawers or whatever, and Ben actually he was pretty handy. He was he enjoyed kind of doing kind of mechanical stuff and woodworking stuff. So he made a fake bottom for one of his drawers. Yeah, he went to a woodworking shop. He found the exact wood, or at least a similar color that was close enough and would have been questionable. Color wood, or type of wood that his drawers were. He made it, he got the exact fitting, the exact cut, and basically put in a fake bottom. That means it's like a slab of wood that went on top of whatever. It's like you put it on, so you have a drawer, a pretty thick drawer, right, or a deep one. You put stuff at the bottom of it, and then you put this fake piece of wood on top. This basically makes it look like the drawer is done, that there's nothing in it. But if you were to lift this piece of wood up, you would have found it's a fake bottom. There's stuff underneath. So anyways, Ben used to always put his stash under the fake bottom. And his stash was never crazy big, so it wasn't like the fake bottom was like 1 inch above. Like you open up the drawer, it's like, oh, drawer is only 1 inch deep, even though it's like 2 feet down, right? No, it wasn't too crazy big. But one day, this story all happens one day, when Ben is in a rush. And he realizes he's late for school and that, his stash just happens to be out. And he also knows that his mom cleans up his bedroom and his bathroom every couple days. Goes through it, makes sure it's all nice and tidy or whatever, and in the bathroom does a little bit of cleaning or something. So Ben quickly throws his stash into the drawer and shuts it and goes to school. He's sitting on the school bus. As he made it on time, but barely. He made it on time, but he's sitting on the school bus when this rush, this pang of anxiety just rushes through him, right? This rush of anxiety rushes through him. Great. Using the same word twice in one sentence. Lovely. He realizes that he didn't put it under the fake bottom. He simply put his stash on top in the drawer normally, on top of the fake bottom. So if anyone was to open it, yeah, it would be pretty clear. So at this point, Ben is he's freaking out the entire day at school. Because he's thinking, oh my God, my mom's going to get me so good. She's going to punish me. She's going to take it all away and say I can't do anything I want to do. I'm going to be grounded for a year. This is the end of my life. He was being a little bit overdramatic, fair enough, right? But at the same time, he had reasonable reasons to think that it was reasonable that he was worried about this. So anyways, he gets back home from school, walks in, looks at his mom. His mom looks very normal. He's like, okay, oh, okay. So, hey, Mom, how's it going? She's like, good. How's your day at school? He's like, good. And then he proceeded to go to his room. So at first, Ben thinks, oh, she must have not cleaned today or didn't open the drawer. But the thing is, when Ben threw his stash into the drawer, he threw it in super messily, right? He just threw it in casually. The paper spilled all over the place. It was not put in nicely. When Ben opens up the drawer to put it under the fake bottom so that he wouldn't get in trouble, he notices that the stash of paper, right, has been organized and nicely put together. This means that that Ben's mom had found the stash. Instead of collecting it, keeping it, throwing it out, and then confronting Ben, she just decided that, oh, well, while I'm cleaning, might as well make this stack of messy papers, might as well make it nice and clean. Yeah, so Ben's mom was actually really cool about it. I mean, I guess she was just realized that this is just a natural part of growing up, and a lot of teenage guys will definitely be a little curious when it comes to this stuff, and it's just not worth making a big fuss out of it. We're going to call the subscriber who submitted the next story Steve. So anyways, this is more of a contemporary story, but Steve worked at an Apple store. And because he worked at an Apple store, he came in a lot of people would come in with problems. And most of the time he'd be like, did you restart your computer? They're like, no. And then they restart it, the problem's fixed, whatever, right? But one day, a mom came in with a phone. And she said it was her son's phone. And she was complaining that he had ran out of storage and that she bought and that it makes no sense because when she checked his settings, that the calculator was taking up 80% of the storage. So she's like, this has to be bugged. I need you to figure out what's going on in here. So, at this point, Steve, who worked at the Apple store, had never heard of the calculator app taking a lot of storage, right? I mean, what does it do? It doesn't even hold the strings of the numbers, to my knowledge. You just go in there, you type some stuff in, you get an output. That's going to take up kilobytes or maybe megabytes. It's not going to take up gigs, right? This thing was taking up gigabytes and gigabytes. So Steve at first thought, okay, well, something is definitely messed up with this. So he takes the phone and he looks at the calculator app that's on the front page. And Steve immediately realizes that something's wrong about the skin of the app. The skin being the little thing that the image that shows when you look at the app, right? He's like, okay, there's something a little busted about this. So he realizes that this is a third-party calculator. So at first he was a little worried that it was installing viruses or something. But so he opens up the calculator and remember, the mom of the son is watching the whole time. And Steve's like, okay, well, this calculator isn't our standard calculator, so I want to make sure your son hasn't downloaded any viruses onto his phone or something. He opens up the calculator, and he's just like, well, this looks like a pretty normal calculator. And he just hits the plus button, just to like mess around with it. He doesn't enter anything else. He just kind of hits the plus button. And when he hits the plus button, the app completely turns into something else. Yes, this was a fake out. This was a hidden app. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those, but there's like photo storage apps, there's note apps, diary apps that they look like a different app. They look like calculator, settings, weather. They look like a very innocuous app that no one would ever open. I guess, yeah, so it just doesn't make sense for people to like open it up or whatever. And the whole idea is hidden in plain sight. Because if you have an app that says, secret diary, do not open, someone might open that, right? But if you have an app that says calculator plus, like no one's going to open that, right? So sure enough, Steve had accidentally opened up the private image account of this mom's son, right? And by hitting the plus was apparently for this app, like the secret feature that like opened it up or whatever. And he didn't even know. He just did it by accident. And there was hundreds of photos and videos that were, to put it lightly, not super safe for work. And Steve looked over and the mom looked horrified. She was like, oh my God, this is no calculator at all. This is filthy. This is terrible. My son can't be looking at this. And Steve's like, oh, okay, ma'am. I think this explains why the calculator is taking up so much space. As you can see, these images and videos are pretty large. So this is probably why the calculator is taking up so much space. And she takes the phone from him and says, thank you for what you're doing. My son is never going to hear the end of this. And Steve felt really bad because he's like, it's not that deep. Like, yeah, he should like kind of like chill out a little bit if he's taking up this much phone storage. But bro, just chill out. It's just not that deep, bro. Like, what? Yeah, so that mom walked away super angrily. We're going to call the subscriber who submitted the next story Ian. So this isn't really a parent and a son. This is more of an older brother and a little brother. But the situation is absolutely hilarious, and I know you will enjoy it. So Ian shares a YouTube account with his little brother. I don't know why. I mean, his little brother was like 12. He was like 16. And he just never really used YouTube. And his parents were like, well, your little brother really wants a YouTube account, but we're only going to let him use it if it's also yours. And he's like, okay. I guess their theory behind it was like, if he's on the account too, he could monitor what his little brother was doing, which is not totally true. It's not totally wrong, but it's also not totally true. I just think that they didn't know how YouTube worked or whatever. But this got really bad. This was a terrible idea because one day Ian was in class and he had to do he was presenting on the whiteboard. This was like a math class. And his teacher said, hey, Ian, can you screen share your computer and look up on YouTube how to find how to factor a polynomial or something like that. It's a math class, right? Ian's like, sure, whatever. Airplays his phone or his computer, so now his entire screen is on the big screen, loads up YouTube, and you know when you type in YouTube, right, the YouTube search, it shows recent searches made by that account. So remember, Ian never uses this account. However, his little brother uses it a lot. So Ian loads up YouTube, he types into the search bar, and then very blatantly on screen, there's searches of hot Fortnite sexy moments, nice Minecraft boop. It's the most degenerate, stupidest stuff you've ever seen. And Ian notices this immediately. And unfortunately, so does the rest of the class. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment parent down below. That'll be the secret word of the day. Leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing.
Connor's racking up so many bitches.
You already know. Yeah, anyways, though, also subscribe if you're new to the channel. And also, I just want to make it clear, the song in the intro is made by one of my friends, also moderator in the Discord server. It is also linked down below, so if you enjoy the song and the intro video type thing, like the intro card or whatever, make sure to go check it out. Spotify, Apple Music, all those type of things. Go support it. It really does help out. He's got a smaller band, so every stream actually means substantially more than any other artist could, than it would to other artists. So yeah, let's get back to it though. So yeah, Ian is presenting in front of everyone. And it's just kind of at a point where he realizes that everyone on screen sees his search history of like hot Fortnite boob sexy moment compilation. Like the most degenerate, ridiculous stuff you've ever seen. And it's super embarrassing. And Ian has two options. There's a fork in the road. He has two paths he can follow. The first one is he can keep going on, and he has to make this choice very quickly. Because if he chooses the first option, speed is important. His first choice is he can just keep going. Like, he can just search up the thing and pretend like nothing happened. Ian does kind of know that people are noticing, though, so he realizes that option one is too late. He can't pretend like nothing happened. Option two is try and explain his way out of it without looking like a complete idiot who's just trying to, like, cover up for his own mistakes, right? Ian chooses option two. So Ian pauses for a moment, laughs, turns around and says, "I share this account with my little brother. Looks like we know what he's been looking up in his spare time." The whole class laughs. But you could kind of just tell that they weren't laughing at him, they were actually laughing with him. The thing is, though, so yeah, Ian's actually, he was pretty lucky that people believed him, because there was a very likely scenario where he would have said all that, been like, haha, my little brother has access to this account as well. That's why all these really weird search results are in my YouTube search history. Ha ha ha. And like, no one would have believed him. I think he just said it naturally enough, and most importantly, like, confident enough that, or with enough confidence that people did believe him, or at least that's the vibe he got, because I think he would have noticed if people didn't. They would have, like, some would have awkwardly laughed, but a lot of them would have just had, like, really wide eyes and looked at each other and were like, oh, damn, bro. So yeah, he actually made it out of that alive. And when he went back home, Ian was like, hey, bud, talks to his little brother. He's like, just so you know, we do have a shared YouTube account. And his little brother hasn't caught on yet. And he's like, and I was in class today, and I went to go look something up. And if you don't know, when you look something up, it shows you your past search results. And the little brother's face is like, meh. And he's like, it's fine. I really don't care. Like, just try and clear that stuff after you're done, right? Because I'm not trying to log on and have people think it's me. His little brother's like, yes, I'm sorry. Like, and he's like, it's cool. It's like, you're good. I don't care. Like, you're looking around the internet for the first time. It's fine. I'm not going to tell mom. He's like, thank you. And he's like, yeah, on condition that you clear it after you're done so that it isn't in my search history. And Ian's little brother's like, yes, 100%, I got you. And Ian's like, cool, then we're cool. All right, final story. We're going to call the subscriber Clarence. Anyways, Clarence is a dad at this point. And Clarence, the dad, right, got a message from one of his friends, I guess. Friends being like, he knew another dad who had a son who went to the same school as his daughter. So kind of friends by kids go to the same school, that type of friendship, right? And the friend is like, hey, I thought I'd just send this to you. I don't know it's totally fine. I just wanted to make sure this is something you were aware of. Basically, his son, right, not the subscriber's son, or maybe not subscriber, maybe this is, I honestly don't even know how this story got to me. I don't think anyone above the age of 7 watches my videos, but somehow a older subscriber, I think some older people do. If you look at my demographics, I actually do have weirdly, like a good chunk of older people watching my videos. So hello there if you're above the age of like 20 watching me. Cool. Anyways, he got a message saying that, hey, my son found these photos online of your daughter. And he sent an OnlyFriends link. I have to say it a little weirdly so YouTube doesn't get mad. So at this point, Clarence, who didn't know before, now knows that her daughter is on the OnlyFriends, or I should say the Lonely Friends, so that YouTube doesn't think anything. Most of you guys know what that is, right? That site where you can sell certain stuff and receive money. But it's not like eBay. No. It's much more like the other stories I've told you. But, so at this point, Clarence is sitting down with this information, and he doesn't really know what to do with it, because he does respect the autonomy of his daughter, but he also worries for her that this stuff might be damaging later on. So he's really thinking, okay, is it my right to come in and make the choice that I think might be best, which would be to like close this thing down and try and limit the damage? Or do I just let her do what she wants? Because she was 18 at this point, don't worry. But she was like seniors in high school. So she's about to go live her own life and make her own choices. And Clarence doesn't know what to do. Real quick, comment down below, if you're in this position, what would you do? I'm genuinely curious. Clarence talks to his wife, mother of the daughter, right? And she's like, oh my God. But Clarence eventually, they sit down, after a long conversation, say, she's 18. She's an adult. She can choose what she wants to do. While we might think that this would be damaging long term, potentially, maybe not. Maybe culture will change enough by the time that if it was to have consequences, they would not be in effect because people just don't care. But Clarence and his wife decide that they're not going to say anything about it. They're going to go on as if they would before they knew this information. And while it was like a close call, they decide that it is not their right to make a judgment, and that they're just going to let nature take its course, or going to let her make her own choices here. This is a very recent submission, and Clarence the dad is a little bit like not so sure about his choice, but that's the choice he made. And I'm very interested to hear down below in the comment section your analysis on this. You guys might be thinking, I'm expecting comments saying, why was this even like a choice? Of course she should have her own decision on this. I'm also expecting comments to be like, he should have stepped in and did what he thought was right to protect her because he's got perspective that she doesn't have. I'm expecting the whole spread. So I'm really interested. And with that being said, if you want to support the channel, go watch another video, leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing. And that's all. Peace. Today, we have a teacher who destroys an entitled parent who thinks their son deserves an A, even though he refused to study. The teacher and this Karen actually almost get into a big fight, and it's really intense, and I know you'll enjoy it, so let's go.
And we're crying, 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 like a wounded animal.
So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Carl. So anyways, let's talk about a kid in Carl's class, who's the kid who ends up causing this whole big story to unfold. Anyways, so there's a kid in Carl's class who we're going to call the spoiled kid. So anyways, right, this kid, the spoiled kid, he kind of knew that he was set no matter what. Because the thing is, right, they were in junior year, and if you don't know, junior year and senior year, grades are fairly important when it comes to the college application process. So most of the kids there were getting kind of stressed out about that whole thing. However, the spoiled kid simply couldn't care less. Basically, he knew that he was going to get a guaranteed spot at his family's company no matter what happened. So he kind of thought to himself, why would I even try? Why would I honestly even bother to go above and beyond? Why would I try to get into a good college or just try to get into college at all if I know that I'm going to get a guaranteed spot at at my dad's company? I know my mom wants me to do it, but I just really don't think I'm going to care about school. So anyways, Carl tells me that this kid really just neglects school, honestly. He kind of lets it fall to the side. He doesn't never show up to class, but as the time goes on, he shows up less and less. I've said this before, kind of a big difference from not showing up to class in college, if any of you guys are college students. Just think back to high school. It was a big deal in high school if you didn't show up. So this kid was really, really going above and beyond to show that he did not care about this class. So anyways, there was a pretty big test coming up in this class. There was a pretty big test. And, the teacher was kind of being all right, guys, well, I just want to give you a heads up. This test is in 2 weeks. I know a lot of you guys aren't going to start studying now, but I just want to let you know it's coming. It's on the horizon. Then a week later, the teacher's like, all right, guys, just so you know, test is next Friday, so you might not start studying this weekend, but maybe you should, because I don't know, man, it's a big test. And so basically the teacher was preparing them that something pretty big was coming up. And the day before the test, the spoiled kid actually shows up to class. Because he doesn't like drop out of this class entirely. He still shows up every once in a blue moon, he'll appear, right? So sure enough, he appears the day before the big test. And the teacher is writing stuff on the board of like basically exam review of what will be covered on the test, what they should expect to see tomorrow. And the spoiled kid turns over and looks at Carl, and Carl looks back at the spoiled kid. The spoiled kid's like, dude, what? We have an exam? And Carl just looks at this kid and is like, yes, we do have an exam. And the kid's like, dude, what? Like, the professor didn't say anything about it. And Carl just kind of looks at this kid because, no, in fact, the professor did say something about it. The teacher had been speaking about it for the last 2 weeks, giving ample warning to anyone who showed up to class. The only thing was that the spoiled kid did not show up to class. So the spoiled kid's like, dude, this is such BS. They can't be pulling this on us. And Carl's kind of looking at the spoiled kid like, bro, I don't know who you're saying when you're saying us, but I know for a fact you're not saying us, like you and me, us. You're saying us like the singular you, bro. I'm not part of this. So sure enough, the spoiled kid, instead of studying, instead of like being like, okay, I got to pull myself together and just kind of grinding it out that night, getting whatever sleep he can, the spoiled kid thinks it is so unfair that he wasn't told about this, which he would have been told if he did what he was supposed to do, which it was mandatory to show up to class. I guess the teacher just didn't really care, in the sense that I think the teachers at this high school, Carl says, like they were supposed to like inform the front office if a student doesn't show up. Like it's a big deal if kids don't show up to class, right? I think this teacher is just like, well, I mean, you're going to take an L in the grade anyways, so I just don't feel like going through all the paperwork. So anyways, the day of the exam happens, and they walk in. And Carl watches as the spoiled kid walks in. You can just tell, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but some people just walk into in an exam and you just know they're not going to do good. You just know you can just see it on their face. They're kind of, they're sweating bricks, right? Sweating buckets right now. Sweating bricks. What am I saying? Yeah, but anyways, you already knew that like they weren't going to do that well. And Carl saw this kid. He walked in. And so the teacher walked around, handed out the exams, and Carl was going through it. It actually wasn't as bad as he thought, which you always love to see that, right? I had a computer science exam this morning, and I was sure that I was going to do terrible, but it just happened that everything that I studied was everything on the test. In my experience, it's always been whatever I study is never on the exam, and it's always that one thing that you're like, I don't need to cover this. That is like the main thing on the exam, but somehow it's literally the roles reversed for me this morning. I thought I was screwed and I studied certain things, and those certain things were literally it for the exam. Like, I am blessed up today. Got to keep that lucky streak going. But sure enough, right, Carl does pretty well, and he's kind of breezing through the questions, and he looks over at the spoiled kid. And the spoiled kid is kind of like leafing through he's leafing through the test, but instead of leafing through the test to read the questions or fill in ones quickly that like a fairly good test-taking strategy is to really quickly go through your exam and fill in any bubbles that you already know how to do. That's actually what I did this morning. I didn't need the extra time, but it's just a good practice to go about. You'll be a little bit more efficient, and you'll also be able to structure your time during that exam just so you can get as many questions done in the allotted time. Anyways, though, but the thing is, that kid was not going through the exam, leafing through it because of that reason. This kid was frantically leafing through the exam to look for a single question that he could understand. But here's the thing, man. When you don't show up to class for weeks on end and all the material is taught in class, and I can only assume that this kid was not studying outside of class, right? I can only assume that that was the case. So yeah, sure enough, this kid does not do well. Eventually, Carl, I forgot his name. Carl gets up, finishes his exam, and he does pretty good. Yeah, so basically when you don't study for an exam and you never show up to the class, you don't do well. Carl did pretty well, but let's just say that, in a couple days, the teacher got all the the tests graded and handed them back. And here's the thing. If a teacher hands most people's tests back face up, and they got little red smiley faces on them, or they're just face up, right? And the teacher comes over to you, and he just looks you in the eye, And he kind of like looks away from you as he hands you your paper. And your paper is upside down. And even though your paper is upside down, you can see all the red ink bleeding through the paper. All the X's, and you just know it's bad news. So sure enough, right, the spoiled kid got his test handed back face down very quickly. The spoiled kid flips it over and is just staring at the grade. So in previous stories I've received, sometimes spoiled kids will stand up and be like, this is outrageous, like I deserve an A because, I don't know, I showed up. I don't know. But in this case, I think the spoiled kid kind of understood that, well, you know, it was kind of a consequences of his actions type situation over here. And in this story, it actually turns out it's the entitled mother/Karen that is the true issue. So anyways, yeah, so the kids take their grades home or whatever, and, sorry, I forgot the names. Carl, you know, his mom's very proud of him, whatever, right? But I guess the spoiled kid's mom was not very happy, because the next day in class is very, very, very interesting. Because, you know, the spoiled kid doesn't appear right away, and that's not the interesting part, because Carl's not surprised if the spoiled kid doesn't show up to class. I mean, that's kind of just a usual at this point. However, the spoiled kid did show up to class. He showed up to class a little bit late, because he was not the only one to show up. His entitled mother, who we're just going to call the Karen, because it's shorter than entitled mother, and she is a Karen, so it's still accurate, right? The Karen, his Karen mother showed up. And she opens up the door. She's got the aviator sunglasses on. She's got the Karen haircut. Like, this is just standard Karen behavior right here. Like, this is textbook Karen. So sure enough, you know, the Karen mother is like, excuse me, we need to talk. And the teacher is like, oh, hello, Miss Adams. I don't know, say that's her name. Hello, Miss Adams. Would you like to discuss your son's recent score? And this is kind of awkward because this wasn't like before class or after class or when people were moving in or out. This was in the middle of the teacher, right, teaching the class. This was in the middle of people sitting down trying to pay attention. And all of a sudden, this mom bursts in and demands to speak to the teacher about her son's test results, which probably imply that he just didn't do that well. One might say, right? So you could, like, the thing is, Carl is really curious to see if the spoiled kid is, like, you know, what his reaction is. And there have been times in previous stories where the spoiled kid was almost, like, rooting on his own mother. It's almost as if, like, the spoiled kid brought his mother to, like, speak on his behalf and get him what he wants, right? But in this case, I think the spoiled kid was a little bit less delusional than other spoiled kids I've covered, because this kid is just, like, he's trying to shrink away. He doesn't want to be there because, man, I can only imagine how embarrassing this really is, right? With the spoiled kid, he's almost in more pain than the students, like, just sitting in this cringy, awkward situation. So the Karen mother is like, yes, I would like to talk about his test scores. And the teacher's like, well, can we do that after class? You know, I'm a little busy right here. And she's like, no, this is a number one priority. I don't care how busy you are. All that goes off the table because you need to listen to me, mister. And you could already tell by the way that she had this tone that it was not about to be a pleasant interaction in any way, right? It was not about to be a nice interaction for any of them. It was about to be one of those standard Karen interactions that just make you think to yourself, man, what about a world without Karens? And real quick, comment Karen down below if you made it this far. Unless you're listening on Spotify, but I think you can comment on Spotify. By the way, did you know that you can listen to these stories on Spotify too? I've just enabled monetization on Spotify, so you'll actually be helping me out there as well. So I'd appreciate it if you listened on there too and gave me 5 stars. It's in the description. Anyways, let's get back to it. So yeah, sure enough, you know, the Karen mother starts to almost stomp her feet a little bit. Like, you need to listen to me. My son tried really hard and he should get an A+ for trying. Which, look, I think trying is really important. I think you should get credit for effort. However, look, you can't only get credit for effort in stuff like this. It can't always be the case that if you quote unquote try, you'll get 100%. Not for everything, man. And also the more important thing here, even if you disagree with me on that, is that he didn't try. So the teacher tries to go on to explain, to be like, well, Miss Adams, the truth is your son doesn't show up to class ever. Like, he showed up like 7 times this year. He barely knew that there was a test coming up, and all the material was covered pretty in depth in class. That's why, the median score was like an 85 or something. However, your son's score, I'm sure you know what it is. And she's like, say it out loud. And her son, like the spoiled kid, is like, Mom, why? I think that, like, I honestly am trying to figure out, like, why the Karen wants to do that. Honestly, I think probably that Karen was all just like, I want them to know how low the score is, so they think it's ridiculous too. But in fact, she's really just exposing, like, how bad her son did. So the teacher's like, yeah, your son got a 28%. And, like, the whole class just, like, was like, huh? A 28%. And look, okay, there are some classes that getting a 28% is not, like, impossible, right? But this was not one of those classes. Like, I've definitely seen, like, physics final exams where the lowest score is, like, a 2. Rest in peace, man. But I've seen that stuff happen, right? But this was not one of those classes where it was even, like, feasibly possible to get a 28. But somehow the spoiled kid managed to muster himself a 28. So everyone in the class was like, dude, what? And so the Karen mom's like, oh, well, you know that's ridiculous. And, the teacher's like, I'm sorry, I followed the rubric. He just answered literally everything wrong. Like, I gave him as many points as possible, but I just couldn't help him. The answers he was giving to the questions weren't even related to anything we've ever done. Like, they just weren't even close. I tried. So basically the teacher was explaining that he actually tried. He gave, the spoiled kid the benefit of the doubt with this stuff, right? He really gave the spoiled kid the most possible points, which honestly just embarrassed the spoiled kid more, because now everyone in the class knows that not only did he get a 28, but he was he was generously given a 28. Like, that was the teacher looking deep into their heart to give the best possible score they could. So at this point, the Karen's like, this isn't the end of this. And she storms off and, like, drags her son behind her. So, which that's, like, probably, I bet the spoiled kid probably would have walked out with her anyways. Because honestly, dude, just imagine being the spoiled kid. And your mom just exposes you in front of the entire class. Are you really going to want to walk down a big walk of shame all the way down to your seat just to enter in probably one of the most awkward, like, classes of your life? I mean, it's going to be one of 3 classes you've taken with this professor at this point, because you never show up. But I don't blame the spoiled kid for dipping. However, this does not end yet, because, the bell rings and, the kids are walking off to class. And the thing is, the high school that they go to is, like, there's multiple buildings and they're not all connected by hallways. So what Carl and one of his other friends in the class, they had another class together. So Carl walked out of his class, and you had to walk through, like, or you walked by the faculty parking lot, and their teacher in the class with the spoiled kid that they just came from had, like, a very distinct, like, red car. And Carl was walking by, and he sees a very obvious big keystroke. Oh, like, what's it called? Like, when you key when you key someone's card. So basically, what that means, if you guys don't know, is you take car keys and you just, like, it's gonna make a gross. I don't even want to think about the sound, but you basically scrape up their car and it does a lot of damage. I mean, it doesn't, like, total it or anything ridiculous, but it's still pretty annoying to deal with. So it's not something you want to do. So sure enough, Carl sees this and he decides, okay, I should probably tell someone about this. Like, this obviously didn't just, like, looks pretty intentional, maybe even a bit fresh too. So he kind of turns around and there was a teacher pretty close. So that, kind of just informs the teacher what's going on. Eventually, who's his name? Carl's teacher comes out, looks at his car, is like, oh, like, what kid did this, whatever. And when there was like a bunch of faculty or whatever all out there, and they're trying to figure out who did it, and, you know, Carl's staying behind trying to say what he saw, that's when the Karen, no longer with the spoiled kid. I think the spoiled kid literally fled the premises. I think he just was like, dude, I can't be here anymore. I just simply can't show my face right now. I just can't do it. So sure enough, right, the Karen walks out, and she has her hands on her hips. And in one of her hands is kind of dangling, and she kind of like flicks it around a little bit, so it makes a little like a, I don't know, dingling noise, like a little chain type sound. It was a pair of car keys with a nice little coating of fresh paint on the end of it. And she's like, well, 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 look how karma strikes. And one of the administrators, not even the teacher whose car it was like, ma'am, did you do this? And she's like, well, 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 I might have. But just so you know, if I did, wink, wink, like, it's totally justified. And they're like, ma'am, you do know that, like, all areas of the school are under, like, they're under, like, camera supervision. They're all recorded at all times. Like, if you really did just commit a crime like that, we have that on camera. And this is when she's like, well, you should have known the context. You don't understand. This teacher over here decided to fail my son. Decided to fail my son because he's elitist. He hates the fact that, you know, his student comes from a rich background. And at this point, everyone was just like, dude, what? Like, it was just so confusing. I think the Karen's brain was malfunctioning a little bit more than normal. Because I think the Karen just didn't expect that she was about to get caught, like, committing a crime, right? Because, like, the whole fact that the whole place was, like, was recorded was, I guess the Karen didn't see that coming. So she tried to come up with, like, a knee-jerk, like, reaction. Like, you hate my son because he's rich. It's like, dude, no, first of all, doesn't hate him. Second of all, he got a bad score because he didn't show up or try. Like, how hard is it for you to understand, Miss Karen? However, the Karen doesn't end there. Because Karens, one thing that you'll learn, Karens hate being defeated. That's one of the worst possible things that can happen. Karens simply can't accept defeat. That's one thing you'll learn. So the Karen starts huffing and puffing and starts walking up to the teacher like, you, change my son's grade right now. Do it. And she starts, like, walking up to the teacher, and the teacher's just looking at her like, what? Huh? Like, dude, what? And yeah, and so sure enough, he's like, like, you better change my son's grade right now. I'm giving you to a count of 7. Which, like, first of all, bro, countdowns stopped working when you're older than 5. The countdowns stop working. Yes, if, like, some mom says to her son, well, you better stop doing that. I'm going to give you a count of 3. You know, the son's like, oh my God, like, the world must end if the countdown goes. But after the age of 5, you know, countdowns don't work that well. Also, a countdown of 7, bro, what? Like, why? It's unnaturally long. It's like 7, 6. It's like, we got the point when you said 6, dude. Like, okay, chill out. So the Karen is just, like, yelling numbers at this teacher. Carl's is standing there really awkwardly, just thinking, like, kind of turns to his friends like, dude, do we go? Like, do we still have to be here? Are we at, like, risk of, like, I don't know, like, a Karen attack malfunction comes and hits us in the face by accident? Like, I really don't know at this point. So sure enough, they're just standing there. And that's when the Karen, I think, just realizes that she lost the argument. Which I told you guys earlier, Karens can't concede losses. So the Karen's like, no, I don't concede, like, you won't pay for it. And she, like, dude, she's like, I don't know if she got, like, possessed by a football player. She goes in for the slide tackle, and let me just say that, no offense, but the Karen's low-key built like a train. So, like, the teacher was also, like, kind of a small, skinny guy in his 30s. Like, this teacher would have absolutely destroyed, or not this teacher, this Karen would have absolutely wrecked him. However, the Karen, when she was running it, I don't know why she was running in, dude. Don't ask me. This is just Karen behavior. The Karen was running in full steam ahead, charging towards him. However, she misses, trips in the dirt, And literally, there's like a little hill, dude. She trips and rolls down the hill. And everyone's just standing there looking at her. She's not even done at the bottom of the hill, dude. She's thrashing her fists, screaming, doing very typical Karen activities. And at that point, that's when Carl decided that he's seen enough, and that's enough for him. And that was his cue to leave. Click on the video on screen right now. I know you'll enjoy it. What's up, guys? Today we got a pretty crazy story. Today we got a story of a parent who gives their son's birthday to his spoiled little cousin, right? So the subscriber, his parents, I don't know why, decided that, well, you'll see why, but I don't know how you could potentially justify this. Decide to give, the subscriber's birthday, like his birthday celebration that comes once a year, to his spoiled little cousin, because his little cousin was like angry that the spotlight wasn't on him. This is a pretty ridiculous story, but a pretty interesting one, and I think you will enjoy it. So sit back, relax, subscribe if you're new and like stories. Leave a like on the video right now to claim your free nothing. With that being said, let's jump right into it. So anyways, right, the subscriber was turning 14, and you only turn 14 once. True fact, you only turn X age once, whatever, right? But yeah, it was a pretty big deal, and he was, his parents were preparing, to make him a little birthday party or something. So the plan was that he was going to have a birthday party at a mall, and I don't know if you've ever, had one of these parties or been to these parties, but some of the best birthday parties that I've ever been to were definitely the ones where you went to your local mall and maybe they had laser tag or something and it was near an arcade. I can remember a birthday party I went to that was it was both, there was a laser tag, but it was in an arcade. So you went to the arcade. I think there was roller skating too. It was awesome, right? But anyways, the subscriber was having a birthday party similar to that. He was getting pretty hyped up for it. So he was telling all of his friends in school. He was inviting all of them, telling them about how cool it was going to be, how man, this is going to be awesome. You're really going to enjoy it. All that type of stuff, right? So yeah, sure enough, the subscriber's getting pretty hyped up for it. He's getting pretty getting ready, right? And that's when his parents kind of drop a little bit of a bombshell on him. So this is part one of part 7 billion to the bombshell. It just keeps coming. But they basically tell him that, his little cousin has already been invited. So I get it. The parents are the one kind of making the birthday party. They're orchestrating it. They're putting it together. I guess you could say that they're allowed to invite whoever they want. But also, it's also the kid's birthday party. You can't, I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah, so anyways, right, sure enough, the subscriber, here's the thing, he knows his little cousin who's 10. Not only is the fact that they're there's enough of an age difference where they're kind of struggling to enjoy the same stuff. The last time you saw him, yeah, they played some games together or whatever. But a lot of times when you have not always, but a lot of times when you have such a large age gap, especially when you're growing up. I'm not saying someone who's 28 and 32 can't get along, but when you're growing up, things are just changing so quickly that, your perspective when you're 10, you're a totally different person, 2 times over, right? You're a totally different person, 4 years later. So they just didn't really have a lot to get along. And not only that, and if that was true, he wouldn't really care if he was invited to the birthday party because, okay, he's not going to hang out with them 100% of the time. But that's kind of expected because his other friends are there too. I'm sure the little cousin can go off and do fun things. The problem comes because the little cousin is one of the worst spoiled brats that the subscriber has ever met or seen on the internet or heard stories from. I don't know. I think this story happened actually before the subscriber found my channel, but he said probably one of the worst ones he's ever heard, even factoring in. So the subscriber isn't super happy when he hears the news because obviously a combination of he doesn't really, he's not he's friends in the sense that, they're cousins and they spend some time together, but they don't necessarily get along. And also this kid's notoriously a spoiled brat, as you can tell by the title of this video, that plays in pretty strongly, especially later on. Anyways, though, so, his parents are your little cousin is in is in town. We thought it would be the right thing to invite him. I know he isn't always the most fun, but family is super important, which is a principle I actually do agree. I do agree that family is super important in a lot of instances. that is a good thing. I mean, unless your family's absolutely terrible. At the end of the day, a lot of times there will be like some of the only people that are really there for you. Not in all cases, but it's a good thing to have like strong family union, in my opinion. However, this kid's pretty annoying. Anyways, though, the subscriber thinks to himself, okay, really, how bad could this honestly be? Which was probably the wrong thing to ask because he was about to see how bad it really could be. Yeah, so anyways, right, sure enough, the subscriber's like, okay, fine, whatever, like, that's cool. I'm going to, like, have all my friends here anyways. In addition to that, like, there's a whole arcade and lazy. There's a lot of cool stuff for him to do, meaning I'm not going to be stuck babysitting the whole time, which really is, like, the one thing the subscriber's like, I am not doing that. Out of everything, that is the one thing I refuse to do. His parents are like, yep, that's totally valid. That makes sense. We understand why you don't want to babysit this kid the entire day. That totally checks out. You're cool. So anyways, the subscriber's thinking at this point, all right, this can't be too bad. So let's flip forward to the day of the actual birthday party. It happens on a Saturday. And so they get there a little bit early. They've rented out the arcade type place for about 2 hours. So they get there a little bit early. There's a few other families still there, but they're wrapping up and they start setting up. And so the aunt and the little cousin get there a little bit early too. Just, I don't know, right? So it's the aunt came over to help set up and, she was going to bring the little cousin anyways. So it kind of makes sense for him to come along as well, because it would make a lot of sense for her to drive over to help, to then drive back to get the little cousin, to then bring him to the place she was just at. So the subscriber has to spend a little bit of time with the little cousin. And immediately, the subscriber's like, oh, do you want to go, like, play with some of these, like, arcade games? And the little cousin's like, I can't believe it. I can't believe you. I can't believe... Why isn't this day about me? And the subscriber's like, well, I mean, it is my birthday. Like, this is my birthday because, it's my birthday party because it's my birthday. And the little cousin's like, I just don't get it. And the subscriber's like, oh boy. Yeah, so anyways, right, sure enough, the subscriber's already starting to realize this probably isn't going to go down smoothly. This is probably going to be a little bit of a difficult time, and that, the little cousin will probably find a way to make this day all about him, as he always does. So the subscriber's like, all right, bud, like, look, you got full access to, an arcade. You can do whatever you want. Like, this seems like a pretty good deal. I'm not so sure why you're so upset right now. And the little cousin goes on to explain that, whenever there's something fun, it's always centered around him, so it just doesn't make a lot of sense, and, like, can he share his birthday party? So the subscriber's like, what? He's like, what do you mean share? I mean, you're here. Like, you're here. And that's the thing he's trying to explain. Like, the subscriber's like, dude, you're here at the birthday party. Yes, it is for me, but that doesn't mean that you don't have access to anything that I don't. Yeah, okay, people might bring some presents. Maybe I get first cut on the cake. Maybe there are a few things. Because it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Yeah, sure, it's not your birthday. Because it's not your birthday. Like, well, what do you mean? The little cousin's birthday was in, like, 7 months. It's like, oh, this is your 7 months early birthday party as well? No, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So the subscribers is like, dude, like, you basically get the same thing as me. Just kind of enjoy it here, whatever. So now people are starting to show up. So the subscriber has a reason to kind of ditch the little cousin, which makes a lot of sense. But at that point, the little cousin, he started to scheme. He started going scheming, right? So the little cousin goes over to talk to his mom, his aunt, or like the subscriber's aunt. And that's where things start to go downhill. So people start coming in. Everyone's really excited. Super cool birthday venue. It's a really nice spot. But that's when the subscriber's mom comes up to him. So at this point, right, the subscriber's like, hello, like, what's up? Because, I don't know, like, it wasn't time for laser tag, wasn't time to cut the cake or anything. So the subscriber, I kind of made it sound like he's being a jerk there. He wasn't like, what's up, Mom? Like, I'm hanging out with my friends. You better screw off. No, he wasn't like that, but he was like, what's up? Like, what's good? And his mom's like, hey, bud, like, so your cousin's feeling a little blue right now. And the subscriber immediately knew what was up. He immediately was like, oh, no way you're falling for that kid's trickery, for that kid's nonsense. There's no way you're falling for that. And, the subscriber's mom's like, I know, like, this is a little unorthodox. I know his birthday is in 7 months from now, but I was wondering if you'd be okay having this being a joint birthday party. And here's the thing. It wouldn't be that deep for it to be a joint birthday party, because what does that even mean? No one brought presents for him. The cake, okay, yeah, sure, maybe he would also get to blow it out, but it's just a bunch of candles, right? It's not really that deep. But here's the thing. The subscriber was so against it just on principle, right? Just on principle. Because one, this kid's birthday was in 7 months. This is not a joint birthday party. This is him trying to like take over another thing because he wasn't the center of attention. So the subscriber explains to his mom, like, I know it's like not that deep if we're being real, but also no, for the principle of it. Like my little cousin, you know, for the first time in forever, something isn't 100% about him. So he decides to go over and demand that it's partly for him. Like, no, I don't think that is good for his development. Yeah, so the subscriber's mom's like, look, okay, I'm going to go to your aunt and we're going to talk a little bit about this. So basically, the little cousin must have gone to his mom and was like, Mom, like, let's make this a joint birthday party. I'm so sad right now. Why aren't we celebrating my birthday? It's only in 7 months from now, or something like that. So yeah, the subscriber goes back to doing what he's doing, and he's like chilling with his friends. And that's when he's pulled aside by his aunt. And his aunt looks so angry, and his like mom is with his aunt right now. And, you know, his aunt's like, I can't believe you wouldn't share this day, like, with your little cousin. Look how sad he is. And the little cousin's, like, standing over there moping or whatever. Probably, or most definitely playing a bit. Like, kid is definitely playing it up. Like, no question about it. But, yeah, sure enough, the aunt goes on to be like, it's not even that much to ask to, like, share it, like, your day today. You're still the only one getting presents, like... Yeah, maybe he'd also get first slice of the cake or whatever, but like, is that really that hard? It would completely make his day, and the fact that you'd say no over nothing just shows how shallow you are. And the subscriber turns to his mom, kind of looking for her to, I don't know, agree with him, because he explained the whole, my little cousin has been like babied his entire life, and maybe today's the day that he actually grows up. I don't know. But no, his mom, the subscriber's mom, epic anime betrayal right here. This is some Palpatine, Count Dooku, yes, Anakin can chop his head off type stuff. She's like, I think you should listen to your aunt here. It's really not that bad. And the subscriber, his mouth was wide open. Real quick, if you made it as far into the video, comment birthday down below. That'll be the secret word of the day. And also, I just want to remind you that if you use Spotify, make sure to listen to these podcasts on Spotify as well. There's a link in the description, but also I'm going to be trying to remind myself to put a link in the pinned comment. And finally, I'm also posting short stories on TikTok. It is Connor Pugs. I have about 10,000, 11,000 or so followers in there. Please make sure if you use TikTok to follow me in there. And finally, if you want to submit your stories, as these are all subscriber-submitted stories, there are now 2 official places you can do so, either my Instagram or my Twitter. They're both verified. They're both Connor Pugs. You just go there, you follow me, and then you just DM me your stories. I'm not necessarily going to say I'm not going to like go in the DM and reply to you saying I'm using the story. Sometimes I use stories from months ago. I scroll through. But those are the places where you can submit your stories. Just make sure you are following me on there and then DM me the stories. With that all being said, let's get right back to it. Yeah, so anyways, right, the subscriber at this point is just like, I don't know, he feels a little bit betrayed by his mom here because it's very clear why he doesn't want to do this. He knows it's not that deep. He also knows, like, it's not a big deal. But he also believes that, you know, his little cousin, who's a big brat, right, has always gotten everything that he's ever wanted. And it just doesn't make sense anymore. It just does not make sense. And so the subscriber is kind of looking at his mom to like back him up on this. His mom completely backstabs him, doesn't even try and explain his point of view, and is like, yeah, you should listen to your aunt here. Like, maybe you should just let your little cousin, you know, have his way here. Like, really just being like, I don't know. So the subscriber is like, fine, we'll have a joint birthday party. Are you guys happy? And the aunt is like, I would have been happier if you weren't like such a brat about doing this. And that almost set the subscriber off, because the whole reason he didn't want to do this is because how much of a brat his little cousin, you know, the son of the aunt, how much of a brat he is. And the aunt is turning this around and calling the subscriber a brat for not wanting to just like straight up. And look, I also get it. It's not that deep. I know. It's like, who cares? But once again, it's the principle of the matter. So the subscriber's like, whatever. I caved. That's fine. So things are going pretty normally. But eventually we get to the time where it's time for the cake. So since it is now technically a joint birthday party, right? The cake is brought out. It has all the candles. And people are like singing happy birthday. Yeah, so anyways, right, sure enough, people are singing happy birthday. The cake is out there. It has the candles. And the birthday kid is normally the one who blows out the candles. So what was kind of expected was that, I don't know, maybe they'd both blow out half of it or whatever. And I think that's what, like, the aunt came over and explained to them, like, hey, since it's a joint birthday, and the subscriber rolls his eyes, since it's a joint birthday, like, you guys blow out each, like, half of the cake, right? So before they're even done singing happy birthday, the little cousin blows out all the candles. And everyone's, like, silent for a second, kind of looking at each other. And the little cousin's like, yeah, ha, ha, ha. And the subscriber, look, he's not going to make a big deal. He's not going to, like, sucker punch his little cousin and be like, that's what you get for blowing out my half of the candles. But at the same time, it's like, dude, like, first of all, I'm letting you in on my own birthday party, and you're coming over here and blowing out all the candles. Like, this is a joint party. You asked for a joint party. You didn't ask for a full party, right? So yeah, the subscriber's a little bit annoyed by that. He looks over at his mom, and his mom is not making eye contact. I think she feels bad. I feel like now she's kind of understanding that, in a way, she did kind of betray her son. Oh, in a little bit. Not nothing too crazy, but in a way, she did kind of betray her son here. So yeah, the worst part, though, is when we come over to the opening the present stage. That's where things get bad. Because there's not a single present for the little cousin. Because, first of all, his birthday's in 7 months. And two, this happens so last minute that why would there be? Yeah. So this is where things get pretty bad. So people, like, the presents are brought out. The little cousin's sitting, like, right next to the subscriber, which is a little weird. Because everyone else is sitting somewhere else. Like, they're all standing around. And so presents are, like, brought over, given to the subscriber. He opens them up, trying to be, like, as equally happy for all the presents, which is just a good way to go about it. Personally, for, like, birthday parties, I think for, like, my kids, I don't have kids yet, but when I do, I think if people bring presents, I'm not going to open them there, just to make sure that everyone's feeling good, and so that, son or daughter doesn't have to have, like, forced equal happiness every single time, and they don't have to put on a show. We'll just do it behind the scenes. I think that's a better way to do about it personally. Anyways, though, so after, like, the subscriber keeps on getting presents, the little cousin turns to his aunt and is like, where are my presents? It's like, dude, your birthday's in 7 months, and you also just spawned in like 2 seconds ago. Do you really think people just went out to the store as soon as they heard, oh my God, there's a joint birthday party, let me go to the store and buy some presents? Like, really think that? Anyways, though, so eventually the subscriber opens up something, and it is like the one thing he wanted. Like, okay, he wanted a lot of things, but like the one really thing he wanted, I think it was some Lego Star Wars something. I don't know exactly, but it was like the big present, right? And the little cousin's like, Mom, I want that. And he, like, points to the Lego Star Wars whatever, right? And the aunt, like, turns to the subscriber and says, hey, could you just, like, give that to him, like, just one present? And the subscriber's like, dude. So he's like, hey, like, I'd be more okay giving up something else. Like, this is kind of like the big thing I've wanted. And the aunt's like I've had it with you. Like, first of all, you are so, like, difficult letting this be a shared birthday party, and then you won't give over the one thing my son wants. Yeah, so sure enough, the subscriber is just like, what? So, yeah, the aunt actually forcefully takes the Lego set away from the subscriber and gives it to her son. So the subscriber obviously looks at his mom, and his mom kind of walks over, looks at the aunt and says, hey, this is actually something that, like, my son's been wanting for a second. Like, I think he'd be happy to give up something else. And the aunt is like, but this is the one thing that my son wants. And at this point, the subscriber's mom's like, all right. She's like, look, this is, at the end of the day, this is my son's birthday party. He was nice to allow it to be a joint birthday party. People came here for presents for him. He's being nice enough to say that he would give something else. like, he's just not giving this up. So eventually the mom did come in clutch, did get the present back to the subscriber, but only came in clutch a little bit too late, you know what I mean? Like, at this point, the subscriber was already down. Like, he had to share a birthday party. He got his candles blown out. He already has to give up another present. So the mom came in clutch in a little bit, but kind of like too little too late, but better than just letting like the main present he wanted go to the spoiled little cousin. So yeah, by the end of it, the little cousin and the aunt were like very upset, which is absolutely ridiculous, as they got like a lot more than they should have, in a sense. Yeah, so that not the subscriber's greatest birthday right there. Today we got a story time of an entitled parent who went to a restaurant, ate some food, and then actually told the waiter that, you know, she doesn't need to pay because she was nice. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. Sit back, relax, leave a like on the video to claim your free nothing, and let's get right into it. So we're going to call the subscriber who sent in today's story, we're going to call him Cameron. By the way, I got that name from the comment section. So if you have a name you want me to use, whether that be yours, your friends, your mom's, your dog's, really any name, just leave it in the comment section down below. I always get my names from the comments. Anyways, right, so this is a story that the subscriber named Cameron, or who we're going to call Cameron, he sent in, and it's when he went to dinner with his friend. And his friend's mom was, she was definitely quite an interesting parent, and the title is like entitled parent. I think honestly entitled is like not strong enough of a word to use. Like, I think it's like entitled ×2 somehow. But anyways, let's just jump right into it. So Cameron, you know, he's friends with this guy. We're going to call him Ben because the name isn't super important. Plus, it's like a meme on the channel to use Ben for every other name. So Cameron and Ben, they're like very good friends, even though they were more kind of like good, close school friends. And they had hung out like once before, but it was only like Ben came over to Cameron's house, and, you know, the interaction that Cameron had with Ben's mom was very, very brief. It was only of her dropping her son off to come, like, hang out with him. And obviously, like, the interaction was nice. Like, it wasn't bad at all. But it was so brief that you really couldn't tell anything. And obviously, right, Cameron was about to find out that Ben's mom was very interesting and would honestly get them into a lot of trouble. But one day, right, so Cameron and Ben had been hanging out a lot in school, and then they were, like, talking to their parents about how they wanted to, you know, they wanted to see each other afterwards. So they weren't in college or very late in, like, high school, so they couldn't really hang out without their parents giving, like, permission or driving them around, or essentially they were, like, I don't know exactly what grade they were in, but they were at a point in life where they still needed their parents to kind of dictate what they did, which, you know, they could have been, like, I don't know, 9th grade or 6th grade. I have no idea. But anyways, right, eventually, you know, the two parents get into contact again, and they're talking about how, oh, my son Cameron wants to hang out with you, or wants to hang out with Ben so much. Do we want to do something? And eventually they come to the conclusion that they want to set up a dinner. And Ben's mom is super, 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 super insistent that, you know, she wants to bring them to some place. She's going to pay for it. Don't even worry about it. And her rationale was like, oh, you hosted my son last time. And I don't know if you've seen this, but like it seems like sometimes moms will always like fight over who can pay, not fighting over who doesn't have to pay, which always made more sense to me as a kid, because I was like, bro, I'm not trying to spend my money. Like, what are you talking about? But they were always fighting about who could be more polite and pay. And I was like, all right, like, if you want to fight those battles, but if you're going to fight them with me, I'm going to surrender right away. I'm not trying to pay. Like, I get what you're doing, but I'm not trying to do that. But anyways, right, eventually, you know, Ben's mom, you know, wins in this argument, and Cameron's mom's like, all right, you know, that's exciting. We'll go this Friday. And, you know, Cameron's mom tells Cameron, and Cameron's pretty excited because, you know, Cameron gets to see his friend. And yes, they're going to dinner with all four of them, so it's not like they're having a lot of time, Ben and Cameron, to themselves. They're still excited to see each other out of school. So anyways, right, Friday comes around, and, you know, Ben and his mom, or not Ben and his mom, but Cameron and his mom, you know, they drive to the restaurant, and Cameron's mom's like, oh, I heard this is like a really fancy restaurant. Like, I'm pretty excited. And she also looks at Cameron and says, hey, like, don't go out of your way to buy the most expensive thing, but do remember, like, we're not paying for this, so if you want to get something cool, get something cool, which, like, that's kind of funny for Cameron's mom to say, but I would 100% agree. Anyways, though, right, so they get there, and Ben's mom is already sitting down. She's like, guys, over here, oh, it's so nice that you're here. Like, kind of, you know, standard mom interactions. They're like, oh, my God. They don't even know each other, bro, and they're acting like they're best friends. Whatever. It is what it is. It's how, my moms interact. It is what it is, man. But anyways, they're sitting down, and Cameron and Ben, they talk a lot, and, the moms kind of, like, talk to each other. In the beginning, they were kind of all talking to each other, but eventually the moms kind of decided to have their own conversation to allow Ben and Cameron to, talk about whatever they wanted to. So when it was time to order, they all ordered decently expensive stuff. Like, this was a pretty fancy restaurant anyways, so whatever you got was going to be kind of expensive. But they didn't eat light, man. They definitely, Cameron definitely took his mom's advice and got something pretty nice. And all the other people, they all got decently expensive meals, which is going to be kind of important later on. And anyway, so they have a great meal. They're talking. Things are good. And then this is where things start to get interesting. Eventually, right? The waiter comes and drops the bill on the table. This is where things start to get a little bit interesting, though, because Cameron knows a thing or two. Like, he's old enough to at least understand how paying works, like paying for your food. And he notices that Ben's mom, instead of writing, because, the waiter will give you the check, you'll put your card on the check, and then the waiter will come and take both, and then scan the card, run it up, and then give it back. But, Cameron noticed that Ben's mom, instead of putting a card down, takes out a pen and writes something on the check and doesn't put her card down, which really didn't make any sense to Cameron, but he was not really thinking about it too much, and only in retrospect that he like, oh, wow, that's oh my God, okay, yeah, that's actually very interesting, because at the time he didn't think much of it, but he still remembered, looking at it and being like, oh, interesting. So anyways, right, Cameron doesn't think anything of it, but when the waiter comes back, he kind of is a little confused because he doesn't know where the card is, and he just picks up the receipt and he reads what was written on it. And he just is kind of confused, and he looks at, Ben's mom and is like, hey, I don't see a card here. I think you forgot to put it down. And Ben's mom's like, nope, I didn't forget anything. Did you read what I wrote? And the waiter kind of looked at her like, bro, I don't want to exactly say what she wrote yet, as I think it's pretty hilarious, but I'll reveal it when everyone else learned what she wrote. But just know that it was definitely something enough to, elicit a reaction like that from the waiter. Oh yeah, by the way, secret word of the day is waiter. Waiter, if you've got to know how to spell that. I'll be hearting a bunch of comments that say that comment that down below. Comment it a few times if you'd like, might increase your chances. If I don't get to your comment, don't take it personally. Anyways, right, so the waiter's looking at her, and he's just like, ma'am, I'm sorry, I can't, you have been very nice to me, but I just don't have any control over this situation. And she kind of looks at him like, what do you mean you don't have any control? Did you read what I wrote? And the waiter says, yeah, ma'am, you don't understand. I just can't, I can't do that. I just don't, you've been very nice, but you have to understand. At this point, right, Cameron, even Ben and Cameron's mom were all very confused because they had no idea what, Ben's mom wrote on the receipt. And at this point, right, they were just kind of looking at him like, oh, what's happening? What's going on? And the waiter says, eventually the waiter kind of clarifies it because he looks around and he notices that everyone else looks kind of confused. So he responds to Ben's mom again, kind of revealing what she wrote by saying, I'm sorry, ma'am, thank you for being nice, but just because you're nice to me doesn't mean that you don't have to pay. And at this point, right, Ben's mom thought that she was actually going to get away with this, so she starts getting all angry and all and upset. What do you mean? You have to realize that everyone comes in here and treats you guys so awfully. I know what it's like to be a waiter. I was treated awfully. Everyone was so rude, and I treated you with so much respect. The least you can do is give this meal to me for free. Which, first of all, then you really don't know. Side note, you definitely don't know what it's like to do one of these jobs if you just think that they can give it away for free because you were nice. One, why would they do that? Two, they just can't do that. They have no power in this situation. And the waiter's looking at her like, ma'am, I don't know what to say. You are going to have to pay for this. And at this point, it's starting to dawn on Cameron's mom, and Ben that Ben's mom is trying to get out of paying for this super expensive meal simply because she was nice to the waiter, which is just extremely absurd. Even if the waiter wanted to do this, which no way the waiter would actually want to do this or think Ben's mom really deserved this, even if the waiter did, like, the waiter would get fired if he allowed this to happen, because, like, the manager or the accountant for the place will check, the number of orders that went out with the, the income received to make sure that nothing like this was happening, or the waiters were, taking cash and like putting in their pockets or something. So yeah, no, he'd be fired either way, like if he did this, even if he wanted to. And at this point, right, the waiter's like, ma'am, I don't know what to say. Like, I can't do this. And she's like, fine, whatever, we'll leave. We'll take our business somewhere else. Which, by saying we'll take our business somewhere else, basically was saying, like, I'm still not going to pay for it. Like, unlucky. Like, what are you going to do about it? At this point, the waiter's like, be right back. So the waiter goes away and kind of disappears. And Ben's mom is like, oh, so rude. I can't believe people nowadays. Guys, I'm so sorry, but, this place is awful. I'm sorry I brought you here. I wish people here had class and dignity. At this point, right, Cameron's mom was just sitting there like, you cannot be serious, bro. You cannot be serious. And even Cameron and Ben were like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, is this actually happening? And Ben's mom's like, we should probably get out of here. We should probably leave. I mean, this environment is so awful and so just cruel and mean, and I don't think they like us here very much, and it just feels weird. It feels bad. We should go. And Cameron's mom was like, I don't know if we should go. I mean, aren't they going to, like, force us to pay for it? And Ben's mom's like, it doesn't even matter. We just got to go. And at this point, right, Cameron's mom's like, okay, I don't think we can dine and dash. I'm pretty sure that's pretty illegal, especially when we spent several $100s, or didn't spend. We ate several $100s worth of food here. So just as Ben's mom was about to get up and, leave and, have the other people follow, this guy came out who wasn't the waiter, who, like, the waiter, like, pointed to the table that, Ben and Cameron were at. And this bigger guy comes out, kind of dressed up a little bit more, and he was like, hey guys, because he comes over to the table, like, I realized that there's a bit of a miscommunication here. We don't really do any coupons or any special events, so you're going to have to pay in full. He was trying to be nice about saying, dude, like, you're going to have to pay, like, come on. But Ben's mom is not giving up. She's still fighting. She's gonna die on this hill, man. She's going all for it. Because what she says next is she says, I'm not paying for this. I was incredibly nice and I'm being treated so terribly. I'm not going to support your evil establishment to treat other people terribly by funding you. And at this point, the manager, instead of being, because he started this off very cordially, very nice. He didn't want to embarrass her beyond, the embarrassment she probably already felt. For good reason. She should be embarrassed for this. And he then just kind of says straight up, like, hey, you can't dine and dash. We will call the police if you refuse to pay. And at this point, Ben's mom's like, fine, I'll pay for this, but just know I'm never coming back. And, like, was that a threat that the person who's making a huge fuss out of paying for the food that she bought instead of getting it for free because she was nice isn't going to come back? Oh, no. Oh, no. That's the worst thing ever. And the manager is nice again. He's like, oh, thank you very much. Takes the credit card and leaves. And Ben's mom's like, we're never coming back here. I'm so sorry I brought you guys here. And Cameron's mom was just sitting there kind of embarrassed because she was, like, roped into the whole thing. And she's like, yeah. So eventually, the food is paid for. They go their separate ways. And Ben's mom's like, oh, we should do this again. Cameron's mom's like, yeah. In her head, she's like, nope, that's just not happening. And they get in the car. And Cameron's mom is like, hey, Cameron, Ben was a super nice kid. I'm really glad you're friends with him, but we're not doing anything with Ben's mom again. And Cameron's like, yeah, I'm going to see Ben. I'm going to have him over to the house, but I second that. Subscribe if you haven't already, and now go watch another video. There's some on screen, some that are recommended. Go watch one. I'll be very happy. Bye. Today I have a story of probably the most entitled parent of all time who tried to sue the school for failing her son, even though her son legitimately did fail. With that being said, sit back, relax, leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing, and let's get right into it. So the story today was sent in by a subscriber, and if you want to send in a story too, you can either do so to my Instagram or the Discord server. Both are linked in the description. We're going to call today's subscriber, we're going to call him James. And by the way, I get all the names from the comment section, so leave a name or leave a comment of a name that you'd like me to use. It can be like a friend's name, your dog's name. Doesn't even matter. Just leave a name down below. Anyways, right, so James, he was in 7th grade. And in James's class wasn't necessarily harder than any other like class or something, but he was in a math class, and I kind of feel like English classes and history classes, most of the humanities classes, it's really hard to fail those classes, but it's also really hard to do really well. I feel like in classes like math, it's much easier to do really well, but it's also much easier to do really poorly, because on math, it's really kind of like, I would say with most teachers, and some teachers are a little bit evil, but with most teachers, it's pretty subjective. Like 2 plus 2, it equals 4. You either got it right or you got it wrong. But in English, it's like, oh, does this feel like you did a good job? I know it's more to it than that with like grammar and everything, but still, like this was a math class, so it was a lot easier to fail it, and you definitely could fail it more legitimately. Honestly, I feel like if you're failing in an English class, either 1, the teacher hates you, 2, you never do the work, or maybe 3, man, maybe writing's just not for you. I don't know. But in James's class, the subscriber, there's this kid, and this kid's name was Liam. Liam was not a bad kid at all, but he definitely, like, math was just most definitely not his best subject, right? It was not his strong suit. And so much so that he was failing the class by a significant margin. No, this was not the teacher rounding down like a 64 from a D- to an F. This was the teacher, giving an F because, he had a 40 in the class or something, right? These things happen. Try not to fail classes, study hard, but like it's not the end of the world. You can always recover. But anyways, right, Liam was doing very poorly in the class. And, James was doing all right. He was getting like probably middle of the line, but it was a hard enough class that he felt pretty happy with that. But Liam was definitely struggling. The subscriber James and Liam, the kid in the class that wasn't doing so well, they were also kind of friends. They weren't the best of friends ever, but they were friendly enough that one day they were at lunch and they were sitting together, and the topic of math class came up, and Liam started to tell James that, his mom received word of his grades and was very, very upset. But Liam did specify that she was not that upset at him, which was kind of confusing. And James was like, bro, what do you mean your mom's not upset at you? Like, my mom would absolutely destroy me if she heard that I was failing this class. She'd be so mad, right? And Liam said, she's actually not mad at me. She's mad at the school. Which if I got to break narrator for a second, to be fair, when a kid fails a class and they are trying, at a certain point, it's not really the fault of the kid, and I'm 100% behind that kind of ideology. However, right, this mom takes it a little bit too far. And just a heads up, a lot of this story will be told from the perspective of Liam or things that Liam heard, but obviously James was the subscriber who sent this in, and Liam just told James a lot of this stuff after the fact. Anyways, right, so Liam's mom was not as much mad at Liam, but was mad at the school, which can be understandable to a certain extent. Obviously, the things she's about to do make it less, acceptable, but the truth was, Liam was actually, at home studying quite a bit for this class, and it was pretty apparent, and that's why, the mom was mad, because she saw her kid come home every day and still not do well in the class. That's something, if I was a parent, I'd also be, upset with. Understandable, right? But here's when things start to, get a little bit more interesting. So apparently, right, Liam's mom schedules an appointment with the teacher. And, the teacher was totally happy to do this because obviously, right, the teacher's job there is to assist the student to do as well as possible. And the teacher had offered, Liam extra help, and they've had a couple sessions before. And while it made Liam do a little bit better, and he did better than the first few exams, which were completely abysmal, right, he still was not doing well in the class by any means. So the teacher was a little bit surprised when Liam's mom came in pretty aggressive because, she's like, why have you not even attempted to help my son? Why is my son failing this class? He's putting in so much work, he shouldn't be failing. The teacher explains to Liam's mom that, Liam and him had been, doing some workshops, and while Liam's grades were definitely not anything to write home about, that they were improving and that he would probably be passing in class by the end of the semester. And the mom was like, Liam's mom was like, when you mean pass, do you mean an A or a B? Or when you say pass, do you mean not an F? And the teacher's like, well, Liam did underperform quite significantly on quite a few tests. It's going to be pretty mathematically hard, if not impossible, to get, an A in this class. But I think he could still, squeak out, a mid C and maybe a very low B if possible. And when Liam's mom heard that, she got really angry. She's like, well, my son is working very hard. Can't you erase the first couple grades? Can you not give him extra credit? And the teacher, like, to the teacher's credit, he can't make a special exception for one person, right? Everyone, like, he can help people, give them extra help, but he can't alter grades. Like, that wouldn't be fair to everyone else in the class, because even though, like, the class wasn't easy by any means, the class average was still, like, a B or whatever. And Liam was more or less the only one doing as poorly as he did. And trust me, man, I've been in a class, I took Arabic through my high school, and I was the worst in the class, like legitimately the worst in the class. Language is not my thing, but I was like, I know what it's like, man, and I know what it's like. And apparently, right, Liam's mom just couldn't understand why the teacher couldn't just, like, erase the grades or just make it possible for her son to get an A in the class. And, while I can be a little sympathetic, like, I also am sympathetic to the teacher at this point. But anyways, right, Liam's mom storms out of the meeting, and the teacher's kind of caught off guard because, he thought it was going to be a lot friendlier of a meeting because, like, at the end of the day, he's not, while he is the one grading the tests, at the end of the day, right, he is not the inventor of math. He's not the one who decides what these math answers are. And anyways, right, so, the next day comes around, and the teacher doesn't think much of it, and James and Liam are in class at this point. And this is before James actually, like, knows about what happened the night before with the meeting with Liam's mom, because Liam tells him this after the fact. I'm just telling it to you in chronological order. But basically, right, they're sitting in class one day, and the teacher's at his desk, and he's going through his email, and then his face, like, the teacher's face completely, like, sinks. Like, his face, like, loses all coloring. Like, not actually, but, like, he got this shocked expression on his face, like he just witnessed something crazy. It's about to get real interesting, so I don't want to interrupt the flow, so I'll say the secret word now. If you made it this far, comment teacher down below. I will try and heart as many of those comments as possible. If you don't know, I actually filter the comments by the secret word and dish out a bunch of hearts. I can't heart them all because I have, like, life in school and such, but I'll do my best. Anyways, back to the story. So anyways, right, when, James and Liam are in class, they notice their teacher, his face, like, just, like, drops. Almost like he's reading the craziest news he's ever read. And he gets up from his desk, a little shaken, and, he says, hey, class, like, I'm so sorry. Open to page, 58, and do some of the practice problems, 1 through 25. You don't have to finish them. You don't have to hand them in. I just need to go for a second. I will be back eventually. And if I'm not back by the end of class, just, pack stuff up and go to the next class. And he abruptly leaves. And everyone's a little confused at this point. But they also don't really question it. So they open up. And to be fair, no one is really doing the problems because he did say, I'm not going to collect it. I'm not going to look at it. Just do these problems. I'm also going to leave and not have you supervised. And let me just say that, that class is not doing the problems. Maybe there's, like, one person in the front of the class doing the problems, but everyone is kind of just, like, sitting there, and then they start talking to each other. And James and Liam happen to be sitting next to each other. And, James is like, do you have any idea, like, what that was? And Liam at this point also had no idea. Obviously, he knew that his mom met with him, like, the day before, but he assumed that there was, literally no correlation. Anyways, right, at this point, everyone in class just didn't know what was going on, and they had no real idea to know what was going on, so they kind of just go about their day. But anyways, right, Liam, the kid who isn't doing well in class, learns pretty quickly once he gets in the car to be driven back from his mom, right? He learns pretty quickly what's actually going on. So in the car ride back, his mom asks, like, oh, Liam, how's your day been? Like, I hope everything is good with you. And Liam was like, yeah. And she's like, I just want to let you know, there's a little thing going on with the school between us and them. And Liam's like, oh, what's going on? And his mom's like, well, Liam, like, I really think the treatment of you is unfair in that classroom. So I'm looking into opening up a lawsuit. And at this point, Liam's just like, you're looking into what? She says, yeah, and also not just a lawsuit against the school, a lawsuit against, your teacher, Mr. What, the math guy, him specifically, since I think specifically, I think he's treating you poorly specifically in that class, and I just won't stand for it. And, we got to have a financial compensation for this because this grade might mess up your chances of getting into a good, college, which will mess up your chances of a good career path. And who knows, you might end up on the streets. Maybe she didn't say it that drastically, but that was basically the gist of it. At this point, right, Liam's in 7th grade. Let me just tell you something that, like, he hasn't even gone to high school yet. this is a grade in 7th grade. But Liam's mom was one of those parents that like really went crazy about this stuff. And she also thought that, in America, you can make a lawsuit out of anything. At this point, right, Liam, he's only in 7th grade, and he's not going to be like, Mom, this is morally wrong. He was just like, okay, if you think that's right, because he didn't really know, if this was like good or bad or whatever. But the next day, Liam gets to school, and before he can go to math class, he's pulled aside by the principal. And the principal says, hey, Liam, like, how's it going? And Liam's like, it's going pretty well, Mr. Principal. How are you? And the principal's like, I could be doing better. And at this point, Liam's like, okay, this conversation is not going to go in a great direction. And the principal just says, hey, I think it's best because of ongoing, litigation and, legal issues that you don't attend the math class. We've, paused your grading and, like, you won't lose any credit for, like, however long this takes. But we just think it's best that you don't attend class. So anyways, right at lunchtime, James, the subscriber, goes up to Liam and says, hey, man, like, I saw you weren't in math class today. Also, like, our teacher's acting really strange. Like, you remember when he left yesterday out of the blue? I don't know what it is, but, like, he was acting really strange today. And at this point, this is when Liam explains to James everything that happened, basically everything that happened in the last couple days, which is what I told you guys for, like, the last 4 minutes. By the end of the conversation, James is like, dude, like, you're my boy, but, like, what your mom is doing, I don't think is okay. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, I hate to say it, but it's on you, like, the grade you get in math. Like, of course, the teacher maybe could have taught you better, maybe was a little hard with his assignments, but a lawsuit? And James is like, yeah, or Liam is like, yeah, man, like, I don't know how I feel about it either, but it just is what it is. Anyways, right, so for the following days, Liam is just, like, advised not to go to math class, and he obviously takes them up on the offer and doesn't say, no, I'm going to attend math class, I don't care what you say. Yeah, no, he was totally fine not going to math class. But essentially, right, James now aware of the situation. Also, Liam said, hey, man, can you just not tell people? And James was, like, just, like, a solid dude, so he just didn't. He did end up telling his mom just because, like, that's his mom. His mom was just like, wow, like, I knew Liam's mom was always, like, a little bit crazy. I don't know how else to put it, like, a little bit entitled, but this is kind of insane. Like, she actually wants to sue the school. And so, yeah, so throughout the couple days or the following days, James would notice, like, kind of like official looking guys and girls in suits walking into the school, walking into the principal's office. Saw like 2 parties, like kind of like obviously the school's lawyers and then like the private lawyers. And over the next couple days, it was just a very weird atmosphere as word kind of spread pretty quickly because like it wasn't just Liam and Liam's mom that were aware. Like, a lot of people started to, like, figure out what was going on, and it was just a very weird atmosphere for the school at that time. One day when James came into school, it all stopped. No more lawyers, no kind of weird tension. Things were just going as usual. And so anyways, at lunch, James found Liam and was like, hey, man, like, I didn't see any lawyers today. Is like, anything different? And Liam said, yeah, so actually a lot is different now. So Liam then went on to explain to James that, it was actually taken to court and that it was actually thrown out so quickly, right, that, like, it was thrown out in the span of a week. The judge saw it and was like, this has literally no grounds after looking into it briefly. And after a lot of, like, complaining from Liam's mom, eventually she's like, she does want to dump an infinite amount of resources, right? Liam's parents got a decent amount of money, but, Liam's mom didn't want to dump an infinite amount of resources into this case, especially if, like, judges were not even going to see it, just throw it out instantly, right? So after a couple days, after it's officially thrown out, and after Liam's mom was kind of done, shouting and, moaning and whining and all that kind of stuff, eventually it was over. The lawyers were done, the school was done, and both the suit against the school as well as the individual teacher was dropped. So while James and Liam were still decently friendly, right, Liam never returned to that math class as, he worked it out with the principal to actually retake that math class, next year with a different teacher. They just really thought that, it just wouldn't have made sense due to the circumstances for, like, that teacher to still be teaching Liam just because of all that went down, right? And Liam got help over the summer and he got better at math and he ended up passing. He got like a C or a B or something. He didn't kill it next year, but he did much better next year in that math class. And for the remainder of the year when James was in the math class, the teacher was normal again because you know what? He wasn't being sued, and that is a good feeling. Subscribe if you haven't already, and now go watch another video. There's some on screen, some on the recommended. Click it, and you'll make me very happy. Thanks, bye.